What's going on, my fellow A-plussers? It is I, your more phenomenal host, Adam Perez, back once again with another review as we're going to get into Zenkaiger episode number 29. Ladies and gentlemen, we had ourselves a brand new episode here this week. Remember, as always, these are simply just my A-plus opinions, but at the end of the day, I want to go ahead and know yours. What did you guys think about this particular week's episode? Let your thoughts be known in the live chat or the comment section box below, ladies and gentlemen. If I could be honest with you, listen, for me, I really wasn't the biggest fan of this episode, at least in the sense that it just didn't really do too much for me personally, despite the fact that I'm actually a really big fan when it comes to tennis. Now, granted, I don't necessarily sit down and watch every open or tournament sort of thing, right? But you name Nadal, Federer, Serena Williams, Djokovic. I mean, like, I definitely know some of these stars. Me and my grandmother, or my grandmother at least, really raised me on watching tennis a lot. So I used to watch the Wimbledon with her, US Open, the French Open, and things like that. So very versed when it comes to tennis. And so while I appreciate them tackling the idea of a tennis theme, I don't necessarily know if I was in the mood to just certainly watch them play tennis for majority of this particular episode. I will give them kudos in the sense of at least adding some dynamic shots, especially with the help of special effects or whatever the case may be. Getting the opportunity to see some great backhands and some great regular, serving shots and stuff. So when it comes to like the animation of the things that happened during the tennis match, pretty cool in that sense. But for me, it didn't just really didn't do too much, and I know one of the things that I usually say on here is the fact that, whenever Zenkaiger seems to fully invest itself in whatever theme that they're doing, it tends to be rather enjoyable. And I'm not saying that they didn't go full on. I feel like they probably could have pushed it even further. I just don't know if I was necessarily fully behind the tennis theme this week, if you will. A little bit too boring to me. Didn't really do too much in that regards. But there are some things and certainly some takeaways out of this episode that certainly does warrant our attention. And if you ask me, I really do believe that it really has a lot to do with the Stacey or Satoshi storyline along with Yacchan. I feel like when it comes to Kaido's story, Stacey's story, Yacchan's story, and Kaido's parents, that's like the best storyline that I think that they certainly have going for them. It's just a shame that it doesn't always kind of get focused on or isn't always the forefront of the episode, but sometimes tends to be just very subtly behind, I don't want to say behind the scenes, but subtly mentioned here or there throughout the particular episode. I will say this in regards to the defense of the tennis theme. I thought the monster this week in Tennistopia, I don't even know if that's even his name or not, I really love the design. The idea of his a racket sort of being his face, what they were able to do with the tennis balls to kind of make it look like locks of its hair or dreads or whatever the case may be. So I really love the appreciation, or I should say, I really love the costume design aspects that really went into bringing that character to life here. But I will say this too. I do want to bring up just what we wind up getting towards the very end, since that was really fresh on my mind. The idea here that we see Ijiru surprising Stacey with his newest experiment, as he has, in fact, an experimental soldier that we're going to get the opportunity to see next week in full form. Now, if anything, if we recall properly, last week, Ijiru did mention the idea to Stacey, or at least to us as the viewer, that he wind up having a brand new idea while he was looking at a photo of Kaido's dad. And so for me, there is a part of me seeing this experimental soldier that makes me beg the question. I have a couple questions here. One, is that Kaido's father turned into this particular experimental soldier? I will be interested to see if that's the case. Or is this an idea that perhaps Kaido's father wind up having, and that this is Ijiru using that idea and information and actually creating it and bringing it to life, right? Very similar to what I think he mentions, the idea of just talking about Kaido's mom, some of the experimental ideas that he's come up with based off of the knowledge that she certainly has had. And so I do wonder if this is another experiment of Kaido's father's that maybe Ijiru is now utilizing, but maybe utilizing for evil. So I do have a couple of questions in regards to it that I am looking forward to seeing exactly how this is going to be executed, because there's even a hint when you look at the preview itself. First off, he does call himself Yacchan, if I'm not mistaken. But he does also seem to call forth Super Sentai teams. Now, I believe when we looked at it, it felt very Gokaiger to me in the sense of summoning not necessarily full complete teams, but same colors from different teams. 'Cause I think from the preview, it showed like blue and yellow and things like that. So I do wonder if he's using the dark purple gears this time around, if he's calling forth these other Super Sentai members, utilizing another ability or weapon. I am fascinated. The costume design looks great, enough to certainly warrant me coming back and having a much higher level of anticipation for that episode than I certainly did with this one. So he looks great. Yacchan looks great. And for me, just seeing the preview alone, this was a huge surprise because you guys know when it comes to magazine scans, like after they start giving us information about who the Sixth Ranger is and maybe some of their super modes, after that, I'm usually done. I don't look at magazine scans at all because I really do like to have my Super Sentai seasons surprise me. And so just watching this preview for next week certainly did. So I'm really glad that I had no idea that Yacchan was certainly coming, but I'm definitely looking forward to next week's episode. In regards to this week, though, I will say this: the Yacchan and Satoshi or Stacey story really at least did jump out to me. First and foremost, I love just seeing the little girl time that we had between Yacchan and Majin. It's not very often that we get to see those two kind of share a screen together just solo. So the idea that Yacchan kind of got them away from the boys for a little bit to kind of do their own thing, I thought was a really great gesture of the Majin, and just cool to kind of see those two characters kind of hanging out. But unfortunately, we do get Tennis Topio that winds up coming into play here and turning Yacchan into a tennis ball, which a quick honorable mention, I gotta say, I love the fact that Granny was ready to go ahead and do a little bit of a henshin sequence herself as she tries to reach for her Geartlinger and then pulls it out and realizes that she doesn't have one whatsoever, which is a little bit of a shame because we saw it kind of teased in like Kaido's dream or vision, I believe, very early on in the season, like episode 1 or so. It was like him and Yacchan with their Geartlinger in front of a huge explosion. I really would love to see that happen at one particular point in time, sometime during this series. So I thought it was pretty funny that she was getting ready to go down the battle too, if she certainly had to. But the fact that we get to see her transformed into a tennis ball, mind you, I absolutely love the little creation that they created for her. Just the little pieces of felt that they put on the tennis ball to represent Yacchan with the eyes and the hair and stuff. Little Majin moving the ball around just to kind of, you know, associate movement whenever Yacchan was certainly talking as the tennis ball. Little things like that I really do appreciate. So the Yacchan stuff as tennis ball really worked for me in here. But it's really once Stacey hears that Yacchan is in trouble is where the situation winds up turning. Now, we have seen Stacey fight back against the Toji Tendo in order to protect his interests. And this certainly seems to be the same situation. Like, I do wonder if the Toji Tendo at some point in time, maybe in next week's episode, confronts Stacey in a sense of like, listen, you know, Barashitara had a plan. Granted, it was a shitty plan. The fact that the Overlord Bokawas even calls Barashitara out on it, but, you know, then decides to go ahead and give him a pass and see how things turn out. Why he did that, I have no idea. But we have seen, you know, the fact that they, now that Stacey has pushed back against them, helped destroy one of their help them destroy the Tennistopia in this episode. I do wonder if they have a bone to pick with him and ask him some questions in regards to why he decided to go ahead and stand up against Barashitara's creation. So I am looking forward to that. But seeing what happens to Yacchan certainly is something that motivates Stacey to go ahead and pull the trigger in here and assist the Zenkaigers in taking him out, getting to show off some of his amazing tennis abilities as well. And this actually does lead us to a great flashback moment. You guys know I'm a sucker for flashbacks moments where we got the opportunity to see Stacey along with his mom hitting the tennis ball around. So he's clearly been playing tennis since he was a kid, since a very young age. It does make me curious if these are his memories that he's actually having, or if these are memories from somebody else. I really would like to know these questions at the end of the day, because anytime we get a flashback for Stacey and it reveals a little bit more to us about his past, I absolutely love it, because we have seen the idea of Stacey remembering his mom, or at least hearing the voice of somebody speaking out to him that he's connecting to sort of as his mother. So the fact that the idea of tennis winds up sort of rekindling those memories, and we get to see that he's been playing it since a young age. I love the showdown that we wind up getting here between Stacey and the Tennistopia. But I do find it odd that Stacey, being Stacey, decides that this is the episode in which he wants to be referred to as Satoshi. So I do wonder if maybe that previous life that we're seeing in flashbacks when he was a young kid, I do wonder if that's his original name, Satoshi, and then maybe they wind up changing it once he wound up joining the Toji Tendo, because of the fact that he continues to go back to that name, even though the Zenkaigers clearly know him as Stacey. Maybe that's just his code name at the end of the day, but maybe his real name is Satoshi, and that's why Stacey's kind of been pushing that. So I am really fascinated to kind of see what this all means. The fact that him and Kaido clearly, I don't want to say are clearly rekindling things and making things better, because I do think that if Stacey finds the opportunity once again to try and strike and take out Zenkaiger, he probably certainly will, and it'll make me scratch my head once again. Like, Stacey, you got to make up your mind, man. Like, this is Yacchan's grandson. Either you're with Yacchan and want to protect and keep Kaido safe so you don't bring pain to Yacchan, or you just really want to kill this guy and not have any remorse whatsoever. Like, you can't have it both, you know? So I am really ready for Stacey to go ahead and take his stand in regards to what he truly wants, because it seems as though he's kind of confused himself in regards to what he wants, asking himself sort of that very question. And listen, you know, this was one of my theories of mine, that at some point in time by the end of the season, Caesar would probably be either joining the Zenkaigers or fighting alongside of them. He's kind of teased it, but I'm kind of really waiting for this full redemption story. Maybe that's something that won't happen until the very finale of this show. But it definitely feels as though the Zenkaigers, along with Zox, are clearly trying to pull him into their direction. I mean, the fact that Zox even compliments him at the end, like, hey, you can actually be relatively fun from time to time, and Stacey just being awkward and not really, you know, shrugging it off, not really sure how to handle that compliment, right? Just very reluctant about it. But there seems like there's a part of him that really wants to be able to be a part of that fold and be included, sort of thing, you know? So he's not a hard book to read. He's just very stubborn in his ways, it feels like. You know what I'm saying? So I'm really ready for Stacey to finally take that stance and make that decision for himself. And again, anytime that it comes in regards to Yacchan, he definitely breaks and sort of gives in. And listen, you know, just the idea at the end of this episode of Yacchan hearing the name of Satoshi as Zox accidentally brings it up, saying that he wind up helping them during their battle. The fact that she had this huge grin on her face and this huge sense of happiness about hearing the Satoshi name, they clearly have grown a bond since this season certainly started. So there is something really admirable and really sweet about that Yacchan and Satoshi connection. It kind of very much reminds me of like a grandson and his grandmother sort of thing, you know, very lovable. So I am looking forward to seeing that explored. And at least for me, if there was any sort of takeaway out of this episode, that while it didn't necessarily do much for me, definitely the experimental soldier stood out, and of course, clearly the Yacchan and Satoshi stuff that we wind up getting here this week. But listen, again, at the end of the day, these are just my A+ opinions, but at the end of the day, I want to go ahead and know yours. And who knows, maybe there's moments that I wind up missing in this episode, character moments, storyline details that you guys want to further explore or talk about. Please let your thoughts be known in the comment section box below, and we'll certainly go ahead and continue this discussion all the way up until next week's episode of Zenkaiger, ladies and gentlemen. But other than that, that's going to go ahead and do it for me, guys. Again, if you have any thoughts about this week's episode, let me know. But if you continue to love our content, do me a big favor, hit that like button along with that subscribe button as well. But until next time, guys, do me a big favor. As always, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and remember, keep it A+. I'll talk to you guys later. Full throttle, non-stop. Have a good one, guys. Bye.